So let's check out number 12, which says find the slope. Do you guys remember the slope formula?
Mm-hmm.
What is it?
It's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1.
Very good. So let's apply that here, right? Where our first ordered pair, we'll go ahead and call that x1, y1. And then our second ordered pair we'll call x2, y2. So let's plug in the numbers here. So we have negative 9 minus negative 4 all over negative 9 minus negative 8. A lot of negatives here. And then anytime you have a double negative, it becomes a positive, right? So this is really negative 9 plus 4 over negative 9 plus 8. So what is negative 9 plus 4?
You're at negative 5.
Negative 9 plus 8.
Negative 1.
Negative 1, good. And what is negative 5 divided by negative 1?
5.
5, good. Make sure you fully reduce it. So it's 5 over 1, which really 5 divided by 1 is just 5. So the final answer is 5. Now we're going to find the slope from a graph. So I want to show you that there are 2 ways that you can find the slope from a graph. So who can tell me one way that we could use here?
You can find the points and do the same equation.
Exactly. So that is one way that works. So I'll go ahead and work it out that way just so we get a little extra practice with the formula. So you can identify the ordered pairs, which are negative 4, 0, and negative 4, 5, right? So I just figured them out from the graph, right? And those are the ordered pairs. And then we could do the slope formula that we just did. So that would certainly work. So if I use this as my x1, y1, and this as my x2, y2, we could do 5 minus 0 over negative 4 minus negative 4. What is 5 minus 0? 5. And then here, the double negative becomes a plus, right? Negative 4 plus 4 actually becomes
0.
0. And what's any number divided by 0?
0.
It's actually not 0, right? Because when you divide, you have to be able to multiply back to that number, right? So is there anything that you can multiply by 0 and turn it into 5?
No, so it's unidentified?
Yeah, so it's undefined.
Or undefined, my bad.
It's okay. So anytime you divide by 0, there's actually a trick for that. If you don't know it, I'll go ahead and go over it real quick. Okay, so 0 divided by k is 0. It's okay, you get an answer. But if you take any number and divide by 0, see how that spells no? That one's going to be undefined.
Yeah, because I know like when it's on the, when it's a horizontal one, then it's the slope of 0.
Yes, when you're looking at the graphs, which we'll also talk about in a second, anytime you have a vertical line, the slope is going to be undefined. Very good. And a horizontal line will always have a slope of 0. So that would have been another way to do this problem, would have been to just look at it and say, oh, it's a vertical line, therefore I know the slope is undefined. But then there's actually a third way, which is to actually count on the graph the rise and the run.
Oh.
So you could start at this point, for example, and you could say, okay, how far do I have to go to get to the other point, right? So you could say, okay, I went up 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units, 4 units. I went up 5 units, right?
Oh, okay, yeah, I see.
And then did we run it all? Did we go left or right at all? No. So that was 0. And it ends up being the same numbers you got when you did the formula, right? But you just got it from counting on the graph. So that is another way to do it.
I never thought of that way.
So go ahead and try 15 using whatever method you want. It's not a horizontal or vertical line, but you can either just count on the graph or you can identify the 2 ordered pairs and calculate the slope. Or you can do both and confirm that the answers match, right? That always works too. Okay, so which way did you guys use? I'm curious.
I did both.
Okay. So what answer did you get?
I got 5/2.
Good. So we can do it either from the graph, right? You can go 1, 2, 3, 4, up 5, and right 2. Now, by the way, if you started at the other point, it would have been okay because you would have gone down 5, right? In case you're wondering, well, how do you know what point to start at? It doesn't matter. Down 5 and left 2, which would both have been negative, but a double negative becomes a positive. So whichever point you start with, it is going to work. Now, you would have also gotten the same answer if you worked it out with the formula, which I won't show you unless you guys want to see it. We're good? Okay. I know I said we were going to skip it, but it only takes about 2 seconds. So let's look at 16 real quick. How do you know whether the slope is positive, negative, 0, or undefined? What are you looking for?
Like which way it's like tilted?
So which answer would you say is correct for this one?
Negative.
Negative, because it's going down from left to right. Whereas the answer here in number 15 was positive, right? Because it was going up from left to right. And then we know it's going to be 0, like we were talking about a minute ago. 0 is always going to be a horizontal line. And undefined will always be a vertical line. Those are just some things to keep in mind as you're doing the problems to make sure things are matching up correctly. Okay, number 18, find the slope of the line. For me, what I like to do is get the equation in slope-intercept form because then I can easily identify the slope. So we want to try to get this equation in the format y equals mx plus b. So we want to get the y by itself. So what could we do as our first step here to getting y by itself?
Subtract 9x on both sides.
Very good. And then to get the y by itself?
Divide both sides by 8, -8.
Good. And we'll divide that to every term. So what does that end up giving us?
Yeah, y equals 9/8x minus 9.
Very good. So what is the slope?
9/8.
Good, because the slope is the coefficient of x. So it is just 9/8. So very good that you do not include the x. The x is not part of the slope. The slope is just a number. Unless it's undefined, of course. Okay, for number 19, they are asking us to find the slope of the line parallel to and perpendicular to the line through the given pair of points. So the first thing we need to do is find the slope between those 2 points, and then we'll worry about finding the parallel slope and the perpendicular slope. So we can use the slope formula again. So that would give us 0 minus -4 over 0 minus -2. So what does that become?
0 plus 4 and then 0 plus 2.
So what is 0 plus 4?
4.
And 0 plus 2?
2.
And 4 over 2?
2.
2. So the slope between the given points is 2. So what about the slope of a line parallel to that line? What would its slope be?
I think, do they have the same slope?
Very good. Parallel lines have the same slope. So if the slope of that line is 2, then the slope of a parallel line would also be 2. Very good, because the slope has to be the same. What about for perpendicular lines? What's the rule for perpendicular lines?
You flip it.
You flip it, so you find the reciprocal, And then
Mhm.
one other piece
It would become negative.
becomes negative. Good. So what would the answer be?
It would be negative 1/2.
Very good. Okay, so for number 20, how do you think we're going to approach this? How are we going to figure out if these lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither? What information do we need about these lines?
The slope.
We need the slope, okay, good, of each line. And how are we going to find the slope? So this is kind of combining the last few problems that we did.
We have to put it in slope intercept form.
It's a good way to find the slope. Good. So let's take the first line. How could you get that in slope intercept form? What could you do first?
Subtract 2 on both sides.
Good. Then I'm going to go ahead and switch it. Since we have an equal sign, you can write the left side on the right side and the right side on the left side. It doesn't matter, right? So I'm going to go ahead and do that because then it looks closer to the format we're used to. But then what would be the last step?
Just divide by 4 on both sides.
Good. So the equation would be y equals 3/4 x minus, and then 2/4 would reduce down to 1/2 technically. But all we're really interested in is the slope, right? So what is the slope of this line?
3/4.
Good. So now we need to take the other line and find its slope. So what would be the first step to doing that?
You add the 9x to both
Good.
sides.
Good.
And then divide the 12.
Excellent. So you get y equals what?
3/4 x plus
Mhm.
1/6.
Good. And then the only thing we care about for this particular problem is the slope, right? So what is the slope going to be for the second line?
3/4.
So then we have to compare the slopes. If they are exactly the same, then they're parallel. If they are negative reciprocals, then they're perpendicular. If it's neither of those things, then that's when we pick answer B, neither. So what do you guys think?
So they're parallel.
They're parallel because they're the same. Very good.